It's story time. 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 Okay, y'all, we are back for episode 8? Yeah, I think episode 8. Man, I'm not getting any better at this. Let's just say episode 8, and if it's not episode 8, you can make fun of me. But, whatever episode it is, we were last talking about this piece, the Wizard Peak, and we were talking about ritual, building patterns, habits, building a pattern to build a purpose, to reach a point, to erect our life's goals, and to look back down at it, and all these ideas of multiple peaks in this void of your existence. And I'm just trying to sum it up all in a nutshell as a recap. You can always look back at episode 7 and listen in on what exactly this piece is about more thoroughly. But before we talk about where this piece led me in the next drawing in the iconography series, I'm going to do the classic random generated question. And the one that I have right now is, what's something interesting about you that few people know? I mean, just to get this out in the open, what I'm talking about right now in this whole series is something I don't really talk to anyone about. And even if someone may have asked, they usually glaze over. And you might be glazing over right now as I speak, but I don't think most people really know this about me. They know that this is a thing that I've done, but they don't really know these underlying thoughts that I have had while doing this, prior to doing this, after doing it, and all the connections. So I hope it's something that will be interesting, that I know most of the people in my life, and obviously people I've never met don't know this about me. But that's not my answer. I just think it's worth saying. Something that I think that's interesting that most people, or I think only one person knows this about me, is that I have a secret language with my cat. And my cat's name is Mr. Miyagi, based off of Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid. He's my scratch on, scratch off. He is going on 14 soon. I've had him since he was 2 or 3 weeks old. So we've had a lot of time to build our own sort of Miyagi Latin, where it started off as in an old relationship I had. It was we would call each other like Braugs or Braugie, and as I started seeing the derivatives of Meowgie to Braugs and Braugie, I realized that Meowgie was only like the base of, it's like the grunt, Neanderthal grunt, that leads to language. And Meowgi was the initial grunt, the Neanderthal grunt. And then Braugs and Braugi was the first like dualistic yes or no type trend or evolution. And then over the past decade, it's evolved, and I'll say like one line, but it's evolved into Higgy Biggy Hitala Jiggle Jakeuch, which probably sounds like I'm having a stroke, but that's like a question that I'm asking Meowgi, that he knows what it means, what it suggests is going to happen. It's almost like partially a command, but also a suggestion to be ready for something that's coming. And him looking at me and meowing is his response to, yes, I recognize that this is going to usually mean that. So yeah, I have a secret language with my cat, and I think I've only spoken it to a human being during like while like dosed or something, where I felt comfortable enough to just be like, fuck it, who cares what they think? Like, we're homies. But yeah, I don't know about you, but it's fun making a language around your cat or pet's name and seeing where it goes, because also those names like Rei has helped me make sounds for beatboxing, like that, like underlying underneath the I learned from calling my cat Rei. Just random shit like that. But yeah. It's fun getting that out. It's fucking crazy. I'm just like, while I'm talking, I'm just like looking at this shit. I saw this like contour of a face, like the nose, mouth, cheekbone, eye squinting, maybe a bowl cut. It was just like, it was like screaming at me while I was talking. But alright, that's the traditional randomly generated question. Just to loosen me up, get me talking. And I may or may not change this mini segment of puns to something else. We'll see how long this lasts. But I found this other pun, and it goes by, what is it called when someone mislabels a color? A false accusation. Oh, that hits me. I may come out later on about why that hits me so close and why I wanted to share that one. But the pun in there is hue, accusation, because hue is a proper word for color. Do you choose a hue, a reddish hue, a bluish hue? But okay, that's done. Let's move on. Let's see what's up with this piece and this journey, and continue to evolve so that we can eventually get to the Peillustration series. We'll get there. We'll get there. So before I go into this next piece, I think it's important to remind anyone watching, anyone listening, of the dualistic yin and yang. I think I'm gonna use yin and yang more than masculine and feminine, because yin and yang is a more objective way of observing the same kind of energies that I'm trying to discuss and merge and harmonize, more so than the stigmatic masculine feminine, even though yin and yang suggests yin being the more graceful, accepting, like gentle energies that I associate with femininity, and yang is the more active, kinetic, aggressive, controlling energies that masculinity tends to symbolize to me. These are all maybe outdated opinions on these types of energies. You might think, oh, there's no such thing, yada yada. But these are the things that I was thinking of as I was dividing these energetic facets of myself as a start. Almost like I built the base, which was that original piece, the Cheese Dog Springs, the intent to build community, recognize community. And it was like my base of a tree, and then it was like twin oaks. They separated into two dualistic facets of that community. Like everyone around me is has a ratio of understanding this side and that side. Like a twin oak separates, and I became that twin oak that separated. And these are the words that I use to recognize where one direction goes and the other direction goes. So this one was the feminine or yin energy of the yin yang. And then the masculine, the yang energy of the yin yang. But as we mentioned before in previous episodes, they were separated. They didn't have any means of connecting. And that was my problem at the time. It was a thing that I was trying to understand as I was still processing, and it took me a couple of years probably to process the end of a previous relationship that led me to question myself in this way, to understand what is not wrong but unbalanced with myself to make me act this way or that way. And it was this journey that I took. And in order to build a practice to keep asking myself these questions, to keep inspiring the need to find answers to things I've never asked myself, I had to build this ritual, this practice that eventually led to this piece, which I called it Puff, because at the time I was very deeply ingrained in this motif that is the nug of the iconography. It was a huge part of my physical practice that would take me into a mental space that would allow me to visualize or kind of dull my neurotic mind so that I could see through a lens of the substance, so that eventually I was able to visualize the solutions that I could render, and as I rendered, I could learn from. And this was the next stage of the journey in the dualism and trying to find a means of connecting them. And as you can see in this piece, they are not connected. They are on opposite sides as the yin and the yang. One is on one side, and then the journey of understanding, and then the other's on the other side. One is represented with a white purity, and then the other is represented with a darkness that suggests insecurity. So this is all, it's like the feminine figure being the way she's rendered more outwardly, and obviously like it registers as yin, the white of the black and white yin yang, and then wearing all the dark clothing for the masculine energy, it recognizes the yang of the yin yang. And I was aware of this need to balance the two. Now they were separate, and then through this means of my journey, I was able to recognize that there was something between them that could connect them, that was the journey. And that journey at the time I dubbed Puff, like Puff the Magic Dragon, which to me suggests this lifeline or this timeline of life. And as you ride that timeline of your life, you hopefully learn what it takes to harmonize yourself. So these two facets of my being were not really separate. They were on the same timeline, but I had to realize that they were on the same timeline, and realize that it's not impossible to make the connection. It's inevitable that some connection will be made because they're on the same path together as one life. And I see everyone around me as someone that's riding this dragon, this wild ride that is their life. But some people have, and the same way I've seen yin yangs represented differently, where the black's on the left side and the white's on the right side, and then the white's on the left side and the black's on the right side, like just flipped, and they're both read the same way. But in this reference, I was trying to create I was trying to recognize what mattered to me the most, like what was at the head of the dragon, or what had more confidence in my life, and what was riding at the back and was feeling all the whiplash. And I put the female or the yin energy at the front because whether I wanted to admit it or not, I was more in touch with my feminine energies, my yin, or more so, that's what I wanted more in my life. I wanted yin to grab the reins and take control of this dragon, because a lot of my insecurities in life revolve around my yang energies, my masculinity, and the toxic masculinity I may display comes from insecurity, and that insecurity comes from feeling the whip and whirls, or the lack of seeing where the dragon's going, and that insecurity that you don't know where it's going. So how is life going to feel? While the yin energy, she can be more graceful because she sees what's coming. She has control. And it's ironic, the masculine energy should have control, but it's the lack of having control that creates that insecurity. And then there's a lot of irony in this, because the female figure is taking the reins, so it suggests that she has control, but the feminine energy is about releasing that control and accepting the path. But that almost suggests more control, like more appropriate control over life, that you may not have control. The most control you can have is accepting how things go, and just holding on to the reins to keep you on a careful and aware path, that you are one with the direction. Not like you're accepting, like, hey, if it's gonna kill you, just accept it. Not like that, but that you and the direction of your life is one through acceptance. And let me zoom in a little bit. It's also important to recognize that as I am rendering this dragon, starting from the head to the tail, I was filling its figure with all the different strains that I was grabbing at the time and ingesting, and all the strains kind of were bud that connected me with my community, connected me with myself, and as the dragon is created, my life continued, and I've created like hype train. I know you heard that. So I created like points in time on this timeline, and the points in time were buds that I wanted to remember, states of mind that I wanted to remember as this timeline came through. But I say timeline like time is linear, but as you can tell, like time starts at a place, but as time continues, it's not a straight line. Time is something that whips and whirls, and as it whips back around, there are these overlaps in time, almost like deja vu, for lack of a better word. But one part in later time kind of brings you back to another part in your past, and the things you learn overlap and become like this pinnacle moment of understanding. And then with that understanding of overlapping time, you keep that journey going, and then you reach a new point where you resonate with another part of your life that you weren't 100% there for until you came back around as you move forward. And the timeline like connects with itself. It overlaps and intersects with itself. It's not, to me, it's not a straight line. And right now I feel like I'm at this intersection where I felt this convergence of this big spiral reaching a really far back part of my timeline, but it's a really important knot to make. Just like that tail is knotting around this central element of this timeline dragon, and that tail is trying to get a grip on this whole timeline so that it understands what it's really holding. Like, what is this life about for me on a personal level? So right now, as I'm talking, I'm creating this timeline wraparound around, like, almost like the neck of the dragon. Like, it's almost like a what is it, the Ouroboros or Aurorabalis or whatever, the snake eating its tail. Like, it finally came around to the beginning of this journey, so that it can converge the beginning and the end to almost like to enter the singularity moment, so I can step into a new dimension of understanding not only this timeline but a parallel timeline that I can hop over to. This might be sounding ridiculous, but I know where I'm coming from, and having this in front of me is really important to let all this sink in for me as I produce my next Peillustration and make sense of this whole journey. This whole YouTube channel thing has been about getting this out there regardless of how I sound, listening back on it to see what I'm really saying, because it's not something I don't write things down, so I can't ever look back on something in more than an ephemeral way, in a visual way. So I'm hoping to excavate these things that may sound surreal to someone who is an outsider to this way of thinking, but to me it's perfectly clear. And if anyone understands where I'm coming from, keep doing you and keep listening, because we're not done here. So as this dragon is continuing, as I am understanding these two facets of myself, trying to make these connections, they're clearly not aware of each other. One is looking here over to the left, and the other's looking back to like a regret or something that they dropped into the void. And one has their life lit, and the other is losing the substance that could be lit, and they're nowhere near each other. But at least from an outside point of view, on a meta level, I'm recognizing as an artist, as a human being, that they are connected, and I have to explore the visuals, the memories, the perceptions, the concepts that I learn throughout these multifaceted scenes that is my lifeline, that is my timeline, and excavate meaning out of my timeline to understand the journey that is this dragon that connects both facets of myself. So eventually I can converge and harmonize. And it's strange. I'm gonna do a weird overlap right now, but a lot of what I do now as a illustrator is I tap into these concepts that I learned from rendering textures, these very tight textures, in a way that almost looks like it's abstract, but it renders accurate to the textures that I was observing at the time. Nothing here is something I made up except for like that wispy smoke and the expressions of the dragon. Like all the textures are things that I had with me, consumed on some level, even rolled up myself and drew from life. And the things that I learned from life are these abstract forms that can become all these things, but at a certain level they look like they're random like doodles and scribbles. And I realized how much can be seen in a scribble, and now I build these portals on a more legible level that have these scenes that tap into like all of these different textures that I was able to see memories in them, and they encapsulated these moments in my life and these scenes and symbols and creatures and these stories that I couldn't describe to someone, but now slowly but surely I'm pulling them out very carefully via Peillustrations. And even now I'm still, through Peillustrations, trying to harmonize these different sides of myself that have separated into the art itself, the body of work, and the artist, the yin and the yang. And even in here we see this, I see as the art who has the reign of my life, and lives like stress-free in a way, and then the artist who is just gripping tight and is feeling all the whips and whirls of the life that art is taking the artist on. And sometimes the artist looks back and is thinking, what am I sacrificing for this? Should I just hop off this ride? That's just something I wanted to say. It might not be entirely relevant in this very moment, but it's an overlap that I needed to make as I sketch out this next piece. But to ground this concept of time and space through this journey that is Puff the Magic Dragon, I had this massive glob of like a rosin, and it's holding a solid pure extract of itself. Like this is all like crumble and like nug and shatter and like joints and all of that, but they're all somewhat raw on some level. They all have some sort of raw nature to them. But then this rawness that is Puff the Magic Dragon, that is your life, that is your timeline, has a grip on something, space, their purpose. Your timeline has a grip on your purpose, that is the space, the space you interact with. And it also attempts to have a grip on time passing, but you can't grip time. Time is something that spills. So he might grip the concept. I say he because I identify as a he in this moment. But this dragon, my life, is trying to get a grip on life passing And that attempt to grip on this essence is represented with this hourglass. But the hourglass is spilling sand. Like, by trying to grip on it, I feel like I've ruptured it, and I spill more sand that way, trying to grip it. It might be best to let time run its course patiently, and to maybe even loosen my grip on both things. And that grip comes from insecurity, and like these grips are rooted in my yang, my toxic masculinity, and that can come out, at least at the time, it can come out like I can be controlling due to fear. Like, if I don't know what's going to happen, because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm at the back of this ride and I don't see what's coming. I get worried about how much of a whip I'm going to have, or if I'm going to go up in a loop. And like I envy this character who's meditating on the tip of the tongue of the dragon. He has so much faith. Or I'll just say they. It could be, there really is no suggestion of masculinity or femininity, but they're like that harmony that is at the very tip of this journey. But they're in the most insecure place. Like, they are in the mouth of the dragon. Their life could devour them at any moment, but through trust and faith in the journey, they sit peacefully, gracefully on the tip of the tongue. And I envy that. I aim to find a place like that to sit in my life and just enjoy it without worry. This was also, every person that you'll see me reference is someone that I knew in my life, and someone that embodied these I don't want to say toxic, because we're all, like, I was toxic at the time. I may even still be dealing with toxicity, so no one's perfect. I'm not suggesting anyone's better in this case, but this was someone that was teaching me through observation what it means to have a toxic masculinity in their feminine form, and seeing toxic masculinity in a woman helped me realize that I could have toxic femininity as a man, and that it was just a weird realization to have. I always thought a woman, if they're toxic, they have toxic femininity, and if you're a man and you're toxic, you are dealing with toxic masculinity. But like, gender is a construct, and we're all dealing with a balance between our yin and yang, and sometimes, regardless of what side you're on, you can get enveloped with the other side, and you lose sight of where you should be, which is that space between, where you can recognize equally both sides. And I was in a place in my life where I was, you could say, sleeping around, like, I'm trying to find the right words, like trying to fill the gap that was left, but also, like, left from my previous relationship, but also practice with each new partner. However fast that they would run through my life, I would practice every new thing I learned from anyone in the past into the next one, hoping to recognize any sort of growth, that I was getting somewhere. And ironically, all of that made me realize that I shouldn't be doing that. That was leading me even further from the path, where I just needed to separate myself from finding, like, a codependent relationship, or putting that pressure of control on another person, And that every new partner that I was meeting and engaging with, however much fun I was having, it was digging a deeper ditch. And I wasn't ascending. It wasn't a good practice to have. Great memories, a lot of funny stories, but if I could do it again, I would probably just be friends with any one of them, not pursue anything more. And it's what I try to adapt now in my life. I'm not pursuing any sort of relationship. I'm not pursuing any sort of intimate connection, more so than not innocent, but not even playful. Like I'm just trying to get to know people of that I would typically be attracted to on some intimate level, on a physical level, but not mean anything by it. Like just like rolling with it, like let go of the reins, let go of trying to make anything happen, and just befriend, and even not even befriend. Like if a friendship comes, cool, but if nothing comes out of it, cool. Like I'm trying to not have any intent. And at the time, I was trying to it sounds weird, but I was trying to grow through like running through all these women in my life, but I was removing parts of myself through that, and I had too much intention. I wasn't letting anything shine through. I had a opaque filter between me and what could have happened, because I had this idea of what I could learn without actually letting it teach me. And I think that's why I'm also over here, like not even looking at the femininity that was right around me. I was seeing the toxic masculinity in any woman I met because it was something that I was dealing with. And I was almost projecting that. So it's like none of this is really like the truth. It's all me like playing this out on paper. Stream of consciousness, trying to understand all of this. I thought I was trying to find the truth here, but I was only digging in hopes that I could find the truth. But halfway through, I recognized I may never find it in this, but I still had to finish my course because of right now, me being here right now, recognizing this final product and knowing where it stands in my current life and where I am on this journey that I didn't even understand at the time, like the immaturity at the time, regardless of skill sets or abilities or talents. Like I didn't even know my intention until now, and the irony is I'm hoping to let go of that intention, to let things just be itself. And in a weird way, this new piece that I'm doing, I intended to do this thing. Like my last piece I intended to do this thing, and then as I'm about to put the pencil on paper, the image changed before my eyes. Like in my head, I was like, oh no, throw that out. It was obviously this. And it was nothing I intended. It just kind of showed through the process of intent. And what I intended wasn't anywhere near what actually needed to happen. And then even after that piece, I didn't recognize that lesson until right now, as I'm doing this. Is one of the reasons I'm like my intent in doing this is to see what happens. I don't know what's gonna happen by talking about all this, but that's the beauty in it. There is no real intent. There's just a hope to unravel or expose or realize something that has been hidden underneath. So as I finished the last piece, I started seeing this new intent, like, oh, this is where the story is gonna go, and that's a problem that I have where I'm like, oh, the story needs to go here now, instead of seeing where the story, how it evolves on its own. And as I've been doing these, as I've been on this journey through Pi, this YouTube series, and I've been listening back and just, stream of consciousness, speaking about this, regardless of how crazy or nonsensical I sound, I ended up realizing that the image that I intended to transfer over to after this last Peillustration isn't the image that's next. It may never even happen, but knowing that I had this intent helped me find this place, this creative place, this vision between where I am now, this last piece, and where I want to be. And I found a place that fits what's most realistic for what should come next. And it just kind of just came to me. And it's funny, the symbols that are showing up are really relevant to what I've been discussing here. And like the character and how she's performing is really, it really resonates with what my intent is, to flow and to groove with this. And almost like, instead of writing the music, I'm listening back to the music and just trying to find my rhythm, and like just moving however corny I might move my body and dance. I might not even know how to dance yet, but I'm dancing because the music has this rhythm. My purpose, my path, my memories, all of it has this rhythm, this melody. And I recognize that there's, like, I need to keep moving and grooving, not get too stagnant on sticking to this idea or this intent. I need to let go and like let groove. Side note, I think this was my favorite part of this whole thing is in that last piece, we saw all the joints, the doobies, getting rolled up, becoming these wizards, kind of climbing this wizard peak to the top, to the point. And here we see has a rein on two lit horns, two lit doobies, like this ignition. And then behind her is this spine of these wizards, these like spikes, these points in her timeline. And each one's a different joint. Like I rolled and sipped on probably a couple dozen, if not a few dozen dubs, and like rolled new tips, and all of the bud that was drawn here, I rolled into the spine. I just feel like there's something there. There's something symbolic there. That I might not have the words for yet. Like I'm trying to think like out loud, like your spine, like you have a strong spine, like, or like people say, oh, you're spineless because you don't have confidence in your purpose. You don't know how to represent your purpose. And this bud was this metaphorical purpose in this journey. And that is the body that fills this life, this timeline. And then the spine of this timeline is finding a practice to take all of what you learn and experience in your life and build a spine that has a tangible purpose. And I think it's cool that both the yin and the yang ride on that spine. Like they are closely related to my purpose. Whether they're in the right state of mind or not, or whether they are with each other or not, like they are there. on this timeline of my practice and my purpose, and that aside, it was a lot of fun drawing the textures of these wrinkled papers and then the spiral tips. I learned a lot about like pattern and like different angles and controlling like the reference so that I can draw it in a certain way. Also, I was building a lot of pattern with these scales on the belly, and I was really learning how to build patterns like outside of like my own I was igniting my own imagination and learning from what I was learning from learning from life and building my own life to fill with real references. There was this marriage between my imagination and the references of reality, and it was important to make that harmony. So eventually, as we continue down this path, you see a lot more exposure of my imagination, not just my ability to recognize pattern and form and texture, but over time you see what the texture is teaching me through what I learned to build on a bigger picture level, like this dragon and these loops, and also building asymmetry, and characters, and I'm just gonna say this before, this dragon isn't fully realized yet because it doesn't have 1, 3, and 7 on it yet. Well, I'm just making a note of that, so when eventually 137 appears on the dragon, we recognize that this is a moment where I see my dragon for what it really is. I'm not going to go too deeply into that. I'm more just thinking about how I was thinking at this time. But it wasn't until 137 appeared as a synchronistic number that I've recognized what this dragon was in reference to my real state of mind. And I'm not gonna say any more than that. We'll get there when we get there. But we have all of this recognition of living life to the fullest, regardless of a toxicity. And we get to the end of the tale. Like, it's like people say you have this like a fantasy, or you tell a tale, and that is a life or a scene in life, or some sort of parody or whatever. There's a tale that you tell, and at the end of that tale is a reminder of death or the fragility of life. So at the very end of this tale, there's this lit joint, like the whole dragon itself, the whole lifeline, the whole timeline, your whole life purpose has an end, like a means to an end, a larger purpose to all of the practices that you built with micro purposes. This is macro purpose, and at the very end of it is the means to the end. Like, where do you want to be at the end of this? What do you want to leave? What high do you want to provide the world while you're here and while you're gone? And that essence is at the very tip of this dragon's body, the very end of the line, and the dragon has a grip on its own tail, and it's trying to protect it with the other claw, the other hand, to protect it from the wind that will disrupt its peace. But as your life is flying through the void of existence, you can't avoid these. You could do your best to protect, but if you've ever tried lighting like a joint or a bowl or whatever, lighting anything in the wind, most of the time it becomes like a team effort. And if not, you have to build a contraption, a physical contraption, to protect yourself from the wind, so that you can ignite that purpose. And this is already lit, but at this point they're just trying to keep the cherry hot, and so that it doesn't burn out or need to be relit. It's trying to keep this journey alive. And as this whole thing is living its life, there's this very small, fragile part of the whole purpose, of your whole purpose, that can go out just like that. Like if that joint goes out, the puff dies. Like your purpose dies. Your mission reaches a point of no return. Or there has to be a point in your life where it's like an ego death, and the dragon would have to turn back around to its tail and light it. Like its purpose will have to go to the means of its end, and it's never a great sign. The dragon wants to just keep going and have momentum, but if you have to turn back around in an unnatural way to relight your purpose, it's a very fragile place in life. You aren't really seeing where you're going. You're just seeing this fragile moment, this insecure moment, this make or break moment, and you can lose sight of anything else that surrounds you in the void. But with all this, you see this whole purpose builds like this skull. It's like this whole intent to keep that fragility of your life's purpose alive is almost like a reminder of your fragility, of your mortality. Like your aim to stay alive reminds you of how close you are to death, because it's what you are trying to stay above. But there's this other claw that's gripping your purpose, and in that claw, I don't know if you could see it with this definition, it's not a great picture, but there's a group of little figures that I start doing more and more. But there's a group of these little figures around a little fire, and it was this reminder of the community. It's the community of people around you that take turns keeping the fire lit, that source of inspiration, and like reminders of collaboration and teamwork, that makes the dream work, that makes Puff the Magic Dragon fly. And in this palm that holds your life's purpose, you have this community that can always climb over and relight the cherry. It doesn't, if you're on your own, like it becomes this whole thing where you have to do an unnatural posture in order to relight your life's purpose. But if you're always around others that live for similar reasons or can bounce off of each other in meaningful ways, and they all are working together to keep this fire lit, you really don't have to worry about anything going out, because anyone around you that sees you, like, going out, they're like, hey, yo, you need a light? It's almost like that etiquette of, like, the one thing I've learned to appreciate with the cigarette culture is people bumming cigarettes. And there's always someone that's like, hey, yo, can I bum a cigarette? And in that community, there's people that'll be like, yes, I got you, bro. But there's always that return in favor. And then there's always the, hey, you got a light? And it's that culture that I see as finding a community that can support each other and keep the fire lit. So anytime you need a light, you can always get that, and it adds a new spark to your life. it's something that I need more in my real life. I feel like I have to make so much, I have to extend myself so much in order to get that light. And the few people I do have that would relight my purpose, I don't see often enough. So many times I have to turn back around and insecurely, like, just check and be like, oh, I feel like my life's going out. Like, is it going out? Like, do I need to protect it better? Like, do I need to fly slower? Like how am I doing? But the more I try to build a community, the easier it is to maintain this fire in my heart as an artist. You can see that skull a little bit better from a distance, but that skull is always at the back. It's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on what I can work with. I'm focused on like being headstrong and like on a mission, and like it's like this dragon is looking, my dragon is looking where that fabric portrait was looking, into the void, to see like what's going to come out of the void. How can I work with it? How could it even inspire me? What could I learn from it? Like maybe there's something I could build in all of this with what I got on my person. But if I keep looking back around, I'll keep getting reminded of my fragility. I'll lose that confidence. I'll lose my ability to like risk the biscuit without thinking that I'm risking the biscuit. So I'll become timid in my actions, and that's not where you find passion. Passion is the ability to let go of that insecurity, not to look back like this guy with the purpose of like, is everything okay? But if you're ever going to look back, it's more like remembering something that you can use now. Like bringing something to the foreground of your life that is useful and constructive, not destructive. But if you can have a community of people like-minded, they're always they're gonna have a different perspective that keeps you looking ahead. And if you ever turn your head, I'm trying to visualize this as a metaphor, but like if you're in a community and you want to metaphorically turn back around to see this reminder of death, before you get to look back and see what's behind you, there's a friend beside you on either side to remind you of what you're working towards. And then that conversation, that connection helps you help them, and then you both all together can talk about what's in front of you and what you can all get from it, you can all bring to the table. And then you get deep into a conversation with the community, and then you lose sight of your insecurities that are behind you, like the skeletons and the ghouls and just the scary things that don't have a real purpose in being constructive with your life. But, sometimes seeing that death figure behind you can be its own fire on your, fire on your ass, where you're just like, ooh, like I almost fell into the fire itself, the larger fire that would engulf me and dissolve me into the void. I might as well, pick up my pace. But that's not a healthy way to move forward. But all right, let's as you can see, this dragon is very energetic. It's very active. It's very intense. And it's how I was living, very intensely, very engaged. I had a huge grip on my life, and it wasn't healthy for me. Even doing this piece was not healthy for me. It was too much. Like, I'm glad that I did it and I have it done, and it will stand the test of time. Ha! That's funny to say that. It is a test of time. But I'd never want to do this again. not like not with the same purpose or the same intent. It'd be far more graceful if I just let the dragon form itself naturally and not with a lot of control. Like, this is a huge display of control. Like clearly, there's a lot of control here. But all right, that is Puff. The next piece in this iconography series. We still have a lot to go, and this gets, believe it or not, this gets stupid, even more crazy. I obviously didn't learn my lesson here. I'm a very stubborn person. Ask my mom; she'll tell you all about it. And this whole series is a great display of my stubbornness. Wait, no, I think I got it, but no, I didn't. Let's try this again. I clearly didn't learn what I needed to learn. And I don't even think I learned from all of them until I am working on my current pieces, like my new series. I have to be completely outside of this bubble to see the bubble of iconography for what it is, or what it was, and what it can be now. I was just in class doing all of this. You don't really understand the formulas until you've learned them all, and then you're in an applied science where you're like, how does this actually work in real life? But all right, as always, at the very end of my episodes, I'm going to be sharing another edition of the Peibi Playhouse, and all of the Peibi Playhouse videos that we're seeing now earlier on are the some of the foundation videos that has built the set and the archetypal characters, these underlying figures that hold up the stage that is Peibi Playhouse now in a more polished phase. But they're all very important and lead up to the current episodes of Peibi Playhouse. So I will leave you with the next episode of the Peibi Playhouse. But until we see each other again, as always, have a great day, have a great night, and have a great time in general. Peace.
Yo, Peibi, you said you had a new song for us? Why don't you play it?